Welcome everyone to the final session for the IREN Growthpad Virtual Food Festival 2020. It's been a good 2 days session, listening and talking and engaging with industry experts on this virtual food festival. So since yesterday, the conversation has been on tourism and food experiences in Kenya. And we have heard from different experts that the country has to capitalize on its local resources and use innovation to deliver memorable food and travel experiences in Kenya. And for this session, we shall be discussing on how to connect Kenyan indigenous food to the tourism experiences. And I will be joined by 3 panelists. We have a distinguished scientist who has conducted research in African indigenous vegetables, and her work has had great impacts on the utilization of the indigenous vegetables in Africa. She's currently the Professor of Horticulture and Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research, Production and Extension at Jomo Kenyatta, at JKUAT, sorry. Welcome, Professor Mary Abukuta Onyango.
Thank you.
Our second panelist, I don't know if he has joined us, but let me go to the third panelist. Our third panelist is an author of a recipe book series called Delicious Kenya and the managing editor at Image Met Limited. Welcome, Phyllis Maleche.
Thank you very much.
And our last panelist, who is yet to join us, he is an alumni coordinator and lecturer at Kenya Utalii College. His name is Bernard Amaya. So indigenous foods play a role in the communities from medicinal value and overall food security. But have you ever stopped to think of how these indigenous foods can actually be connected to the tourism circuit that currently exists in the country? Professor Mary Abukuta.
Thank you very much. I want to start by saying that tourism is one of the key sectors that bring in foreign exchange to the country. And we know that many a times tourists come to see animals and the other things, people, our culture, and so on. But in terms of linking tourism to foods, it is not yet fully disclosed or exploited. Many tourists come here and by chance they come across our foods. Some like it, some don't like it. However, I want to say that for us to connect indigenous foods to tourism experience, we have to do several things to make sure that we optimally utilize or exploit the resources of foods we have in Kenya. One of the things I want to say for us to be able to connect optimally indigenous foods and tourism, we have to do a lot of advocacy locally and globally. I will suggest some pragmatic ways we can do it. Song and dance. Song and dance, you see most tourist areas, there's a lot of singing and dance. So my suggestion is that for us to be able to optimize all our songs, or most of our songs that are sung in these tourist places, in hotels, entertainment spots where tourists visit, we must sing about our food. We must talk about your food, how good they are, and the advantages of the food. We must also use mass media, print media, audio, TV, social media, and even schools, so that wherever we are able to talk about our foods. And I'm not just talking about popularizing them locally, but in all aspects, in our embassies abroad, so that when the tourists are coming to Kenya, they'll know, I'll go to Kenya and I'm going to eat managu. I'll go to Kenya, I'm going to eat maybe something like irio or something like that. And then we need to even bring the communities talking about these foods in our big hotels. so that we can exploit our indigenous knowledge. Are these foods available? If I go to Hilton and I ask for maybe tsiswa, can I get it? When I go to Intercontinental and I ask for mushenye, can I get it? These are some of the indigenous foods. So the word of availability is one of the key factors that will help us connect Kenyan indigenous foods to tourism experience. And these restaurants, institutions, because even tourists come to different institutions, are we able to make these foods available? The opportunity is there, but we have some work to do.
Thank you so much. And talking on availability, Phyllis, what can you say about this? You are an author of a series of a recipe book called Delicious Kenya. I see there are like 3 copies or 4 out, which are out. What can you say about the availability of indigenous foods to the Kenyan market and to the international market?
Okay, thank you, Esperance.
Yes.
Availability. I think if there was a time it was very difficult to find these vegetables, and if you found them, you really had to search for them. They were not available, for instance, in these big supermarkets. Maybe if you went to Kikomba, or you ask for somebody from home to bring for you when they're coming back to Nairobi. And it's not because that there was little demand for them at some point, because we had been so used to not eating them. It's like they had disappeared for a while, because people were not eating them and people did not know about them. When I started doing my cookbooks, I thought, how can I get these products, and I had to go quite distance, and for instance, things like fish, obambo, the fish that is dried and split open. It's not even right now, it's not available in the supermarket. Go to any large supermarket, even the ones we go on a day as Kenyans, that are not maybe frequented by foreigners. Things like that are not available. So it's not that they cannot be available. It is that maybe our palates have been so influenced by other kinds of food that we no longer feel that we enjoy that kind of food, or that there's a generation that has passed that is not we feel maybe it was for them, but not for our generation. That now we are into the spaghettis and the pizzas and and we think that maybe we have moved forward. So availability is not a problem if there is demand. So creating demand is maybe the challenge. And then we find a way to bring them into the mainstream, where if I want to buy, like I said, that kind of dried fish, I'll just walk, or even the dried meat alia, I'll just walk into a supermarket and buy it. Why not? So availability and awareness probably should go hand in hand. And now I think with these are sort of coming back to ourselves that is happening. People are beginning to actually realize that they not only have health benefits, they're actually very delicious. Once you know how to cook, there's a cooking craze that suddenly started when we started, especially like Tupike Cooking Magazine, quite a while back. I'm sure Mary, I don't know if she's aware of Tupike. Yeah, that was before we started Delicious Kenya cookbooks. So Tupike brought up those foods, and like I said, that is when I realized there was a challenge getting this product. But after a while, it became easier to get them. Demand was created to a certain point, and people started now, appreciating. So demand is, you can create demand, then availability. Kenyans are very business minded. The moment you tell them, there's a demand for such a product, it will be available. Yeah.
So you're trying to say that these indigenous foods are available, and also the demand is available, but how comes we are not seeing the consumption rate rising, especially in our hotel menus and even in our urban household menus? Because you'll find that a Nairobian, let me use that one as an example, will have to go to a restaurant to just get murenda or managu that is well prepared. Why is that?
Okay, there are two instances. I'll first talk about tourism and the tourist market, and why it is not so common in hotels. We have to ask ourselves, why is it that when tourists come to Kenya, they only come for one thing, our wildlife? What happened to our food? Where did we miss that part, that when a tourist goes to a country, they are looking for the whole experience? For instance, if I go, for instance, I want to go to Italy, I'm just not looking to see Italy. There's something about Italy that will make me want to go there. There's something that is different from my country, isn't it? It includes their food, their culture, their animals, their scenery. Okay? So where did we miss the boat in Kenya? And let me even say in Africa, you know, that we don't find that same connection with the whole culture, the whole experience of food and our animals and our people, our environment. Where did food miss in that whole question? And it might be a bit, controversial, but I think it's because we were once colonized by the British, who somehow felt that, okay, our animals are good, but maybe not our food. And we internalized that. Okay? So it's almost like a cultural, we have to re-educate ourselves, so that even when we are talking to tourists, like Mary said, it has to be a complete experience. You know, you come to Kenya, not just to see animals. Kenya is not just made of animals. It's a complete experience. You have to eat our food also, so that you feel like you have been actually toward our country. So it's a pertinent question, which needs to be dealt with, let me say, from foundational level, meaning these culinary schools, like our Utalii College, or anywhere else that people learn cookery and chef, that profession in Kenya, it must be mainstreamed. Our food has to be mainstreamed. It has to be put to the level of other food, like Italian food, French cuisine, Indian cuisine, you know, so that we talk about Kenyan cuisine. When a tourist goes into a hotel, they know they're going to have Kenyan cuisine. And then there's something that they do with their food and their culture. There's something they say, they create value, you know, create value for our food. So that when you're talking about Kenyan cuisine, it's, you know, there's a place you have put it in their psychology, that it is good, you know. It's different, yes. It reminds me of like when pizza came into Kenya. Not many people like pizza, but there's something that was created, a hype, you know, that I have to eat pizza because it's from Italy. You know, it was totally foreign. Most Kenyans had never even had cheese or olives. You know, it was a foreign taste. But, you know, tell your child, I'm bringing pizza home today, they'll be very excited. Well, some people still don't like it, but they're making millions in Kenya, that industry. It's the same thing with our food. It's a different kind of food. It's an acquired taste. I mean, you won't just eat ugali and like it. Most people say it's bland, especially those who are not used to it. But that's how ugali tastes. So you have to acquire the taste and then make it look like, like I said, it's almost like a psychological game, you know, or education, that acquiring the taste of Kenyan food is also sophistication. You know, we have to, like I said, we have to put our food at par with the rest of the world. So that when I'm eating omena, it's like I'm eating caviar. And why not? Yeah. So we should not look down on our food, not make it look like it is, you know, it's not at par with the rest of, because it's a, like I said, it's a psychological problem, it's a cultural problem, that we need to downplay and then mainstream our cuisine into the culinary schools and colleges and universities.
So
Yeah.
as a country, we are losing touch with our indigenous knowledge. Are you proposing that we first start with making people aware of food literacy, of how it is first produced, where it is produced, and how it is consumed, and then now that is where we shall be able to promote this value that we have in terms of food? Is that what you're proposing?
Yes, that's
Okay.
what I'm proving, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Professor Mary Abukuta, you're a food scientist and you've been working so hard to promote the consumption of African indigenous foods in Africa. In terms of promoting tourism, which countries can you tell us that are really maximizing on their indigenous foods or in their indigenous crops in terms of creating a tourist experience for their people?
Thank you, Jesoli. Before I answer the question of a specific country that I want to give as an example, I'd like to add my voice to what Phyllis has said. We find that many of us, the main problem about African foods is not that they are bad or they are not good, or it's just that the attitude we have. Once we deal with the attitude, because I know, like even at the university, when I introduce indigenous foods to students, some of them just change because you just a matter of advertising and telling the goodness of the food. And our research has actually shown that some of the indigenous food are more nutritious and have more value than even the conventional food. I'll give you an example, 2 examples before I answer your question, if time is going to allow. The first example is that there's a tourist who came to Kenya and went to a hotel. I happened to be in that restaurant, and he was looking for African foods, and he only saw chips. So there's a way that we must project and make this food available, as Phyllis has said, make deliberate efforts. Number 2, I'll talk about Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is not the best foods you can ever, or a drink you can ever drink. In fact, it has a lot of negative effects on the body. I hope I'll not be misquoted or taken to jail, but the way they advertise, you open your TV, there is Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. When you are a child until now, Coca-Cola. Why can't we do that for indigenous foods? So there are those 2 things we need to think about. Now, let me come to answer your question. Indigenous, a country that I would like to give as an example that I have read. I've seen many, many countries, but I've just chosen one, Mexico. Now, I want to say that in Mexico, there is a study which was done, Indigenous Communities and Their Food Systems, a contribution to the current debate by a researcher called Lugo Morin. What Lugo Morin was looking at is the promotion of indigenous food systems in Mexico, I think in one of the provinces. Mexico, the system he was looking at is called Mesoamerican agricultural system, what we can even call Pan-African agricultural system, maybe something equivalent. Now, what he was looking for is development of new strategies of action that allow not only the strengthening of today's localized agro-food systems, but also to reevaluate the food systems forgotten or guarded by indigenous populations that remain present. So out of this study, we find that he found out native and indigenous populations have ancestral knowledge, what we call indigenous knowledge of food systems. They have maintained and sustained it in some parts of Mexico. The use and exploitation of this system is key to new theoretical models that can help us exploit the food systems in Africa and in Kenya. And I use that example because I haven't been to Mexico, but many people have gone to Mexico. It's the first time I heard you go to the shelves of Mexico supermarkets and you find packaged crunchy grasshoppers on the shelf. They have marketed their foods. They have maintained that indigenous knowledge and institutionalized it. So if Kenya and many African countries can institutionalize African foods in terms of availing them in a form that is acceptable, and of course, borrowing from the recipes that Phyllis has developed, using the right recipes, we are going to go very far. Now, if Mexico has done it, and I know Africa and Kenya has more resources in terms of food, indigenous foods. Recently, I just discovered this, what we call giant rat in Busia, a delicacy. There are very many foods we don't know. Of course, I frown because I've never eaten it. So what I'm saying is, if we can just look at what Mexico has done and we borrow, it will be very good. Other countries have done it, China, India. India really prides of its own food systems and food, indigenous food, and links it to the tourism. When you go to those countries, you have to eat whatever they have. So if we can look at what Mexico has done, using this example, and many other countries, but this is my best example as a country that has maintained the indigenous communities, indigenous way of producing these plants, and then moving them to the next step, packaging them and marketing them for us, for tourism and other foreigners who go to that country.
Yeah, I think we need to look at what our indigenous foods can really offer. Is it the medicinal value? Because like in India, I know they promote the indigenous foods. There's the wheat flour, which they say is for medicinal health. So they've used that to actually promote and create a brand out of that indigenous millet food. And people now travel to that country just so that they can be able to have a taste of that with flour, so that they can be able to be healed from whatever. So if that can also be adapted here in Kenya, what is it that our indigenous foods can offer, so that a tourism can come all the way from India, all the way from China, to just come and have an experience of this thing. There was also I don't know, it was in Pakistan or something. There's a lady who was doing the spa, this massage and spa. Yeah. Thing, but she was using some traditional leaves where she puts in water. So when you get into that water, it softens your skin or something. But what she was using was actually an indigenous food. So when you prepare it, it's food, but also there's this additional value of when you come to when you go to that place and there's this spa, and your skin is able to be rejuvenated just by the fact of that particular product has been added to the water. So coming back to Phyllis Malete, what do you think are the steps that we can take to ensure that our indigenous foods are marketed internationally?
Okay. Marketing of our foods.
Yes.
First, like I said, we have to change the perception of how our food is generally. We have to place it in a place that is more acceptable in the minds of our visitors who are coming to visit us. And how do we do that? We can make them, for instance, we can have, we can create a package where we say, come to our farm, see how we grow our food, our indigenous food, how is it grown? Okay, help them, give them a package where they're going to come and participate in the growing of this food, see how it is grown, make it part of the tourism itinerary. Also, we can have maybe cooking clubs, okay, where they come and participate in cookery of that food. How do they make our aliyah, for instance? How do they make our ugali? It will be a fun experience where afterward they will now, eat and enjoy it, something that they have made, but they have made our food. You see, so make it part of the tourist experience where they come and not just sell. Okay, we're going to go to the Masai Mara and see the big five. No, include also. We'll take you to a farm. We'll show you how our arrowroots are grown, and then we'll take you to a place, maybe you can create either in the hotel or a different place where now they are taken as part of the tourist itinerary, and they go and cook that food. Then they sit down and they enjoy. Or if it's camping, show them how do we do our nyama choma, let them be part of it. You see, so that can include it in their itinerary. Secondly, like Mary said, that some visitors, when they come to eat our food, some like it, others don't. And that is a natural reaction to anything new. Like I gave an example of pizza, some liked it, the first time, immediately. Others took time to like it. And some ended up liking it, and others have never liked it. So you have to accept that not everybody is going to like your food, but for those who you can maybe you can say, okay, out of maybe 100 visitors, at least even if half of them like our food, that's a good start, So the main thing that usually I have seen people like when we have talked to a foreigner and with their interaction with our food, usually they say this about our food. They say our food tastes unusual, it is bland, and it doesn't have a refined taste. Those are their main comments when it comes to Kenyan food. And you have to admit that our food actually is different, especially if it is not something, if it's something completely new that you're coming to eat. Like you prepare a nice ugali and matumbo, and you can't expect a visitor who has never ever eaten anything like that. Maybe their whole life they've just been eating a hamburger or fries, that is a completely new taste experience. So maybe we should change our language also, the way we talk. If somebody says, no, your food tastes unusual, that's why I don't like it. You say, well, our food is, you have to acquire the taste. It's an acquired taste. And usually when you, and it is true, because African food, what I realized, we enjoy African food when it is plain. And that is from our background. If you look, for instance, at the way maybe Central Kenyans, let me say Kikuyus cook, they have been accused of cooking their food and it's bland. But if you take a potato and roast it, just throw it in the fire, put a little salt on it, and eat it like that. Potato has its own taste. Before you add anything else to it, even oil, it has its own taste. Let me say it bluntly, ile ilizaliwa nayo, So does a banana, these cooking bananas, matoke. Take matoke, just throw it in the fire, and then peel it and eat it. It has its own taste. So even githeri, just boil githeri, put a little salt and eat it like that, and we enjoy it like that. Yeah, you just do that. So it's actually an acquired taste. And I always say this to people, and they usually don't believe me, that we have a very sophisticated palate. as Africans, because we appreciate food at its most basic. You know, before you add anything else, food has its own taste. So for you to appreciate that taste before anything is added, it means you can taste the actual flavor of that food, isn't it? So I think we need to put our food at that part. And then also we look at the health aspect of it. When you boil food, when you roast it, you know, in a simple way, it retains a lot of its nutrients. So that is another aspect which we can sell, that our food is very nutritious. You know, it's simple, it's cooked in a simple way, it's very nutritious, the color is there, you know, and we can also, so instead of saying bland, we can say our food has that earthy taste, you know, it has that nice, plain, simple taste that you need to appreciate even before you add anything else to it. So that's how we enjoy our food. As for not refined, some of our food is slow food. For instance, like the porridges that we cook, you know, the ones that take time to ferment. Even there are some vegetables which, you know, they are better eaten after 2 days or 3 days. You know, you just keep on adding the cream, you know. So it's slow food. So, and it gets a very rich taste. So instead of saying it is not, your food is not refined, it's too, you know, you can say, no, our food is slow food. And slow food in itself is a movement. You know that. I'm sure some of you have heard of slow food. It's also, you can also say it is traditional. Our food is traditional. It's from our past, you know, so that's how we enjoy it, you know. So when we give our food an identity, you know, and let me say class. We have to create our own class for our food, that they have created their class, and make it look like that our food, for you to appreciate it, you know, you really have to have that, you know, sort of sophisticated kind of also palate. I think that's a way we can sell our food to our visitors, so that they can look forward to say, oh, what is this that you have to, you know, acquire, you know, so that we move it from that psychological place of, no, it's too, you know, it's not sophisticated, it's not, you know, it's too bland, it's too, so we take it to a place where we aspire that they aspire to appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Phyllis. And now I want to welcome Bernard Amaya, who has just joined us for this session. Bernard, we've just had the conversation from Phyllis, and she says that we need to start from first making Kenyans embrace that we have traditional foods that have an acquired taste, that it is very unique. But from a perspective of working at Kenya Utalii College, what's your thought on this, and how can we ensure that Kenyan people first embrace that what they have is quite unique before we even go outside Kenya to tell a Ugandan or to tell an Indian that, hey, you can come to Kenya and eat sufua or eat a hot potato that has just been put on salt and some onions, and it's good to go. Bernard. Bernard, can you hear me? Okay, as you wait for Bernard, there is a question from James, and this one I would like to have Professor Mary respond to it. Can we also push for domestic tourism? People eat food from other countries, like have people eat food from other counties, e.g. camel milk. What strategies to make Kenya middle class get attracted to foods from other communities? I think he's referring to inter-county cross-section of these indigenous foods. Professor Mary?
Thank you, Jesoli, and thank you for the question. The question is not, can we also push? We are already pushing for domestic tourism, people to eat food from different communities or counties. I'll give an example. You remember I mentioned earlier about the giant rat or tiger rat of Busia. And I told you when I first heard about it, it was for the first time. And this was because we were trying to see what are the foods that are, it was a project, we were looking at what the foods are in different counties and how can we now encourage other counties to eat foods that are not in their county. And then we were also trying to see for each county, which are the strong, what are their niche or what is their delicacy. So as we did that, we also have done efforts or strategies or activities to introduce some foods in different counties. I'll talk about indigenous vegetables, which is an area I've done a lot of work. When I initially started work on indigenous vegetable promotion, actually people in central Kenya were not eating some of the vegetables, especially murenda. But as we speak now, because of that introduction, advertising, and also teaching them how to cook recipes, sharing recipes, some of them are already eating some of those foods. The other example I want to give is fish. Traditionally, most people in central Kenya also were not eating fish, but there was an effort to introduce these fish ponds. And some of the people I've talked to, they had to learn to eat the fish. So yes, we are doing it and we need to do it more so that if I go to the coast, I find their food, I should not say this food is not ours. Because I remember originally when we started introducing mrenda in central Kenya, they used to say this food is for Luyas and Luini, chakula ya Wajaluo na Waluya. But eventually, slowly, as the palate developed, some of them like some of these foods. So it's something we need to capitalize on so that wherever you are, you can be able to eat. You say, okay, this is the Luya food, but you can still eat it. So it's something we can strengthen and maybe develop policies that can help us interchange. And this is where I was talking about competitions. You can have competitions, say different countries, which we have also done. Come and compete and then see. And then as they compete, you can talk about your food and you can talk about why it is good and the advantages. And that's how research comes in. For example, we have what we call munyu, this lye, the traditional salt. And some communities don't use it. But now my research has shown, or research with my team has shown that when you use lye, the vegetables are more nutritious, have more nutrient content in terms of minerals. So we can be able to see what are the indigenous knowledge for different communities, what are the advantages, and what's the scientific basis so that we add the science to it, to the indigenous knowledge. So we can do it through different avenues like competitions. We can add science to it and standardize these recipes as Phyllis is doing. And then the strategies that Kenya can make to get people attracted to our foods is basically packaging the food, having easy recipes that people can easily buy or can be able to buy into it or can be able to prepare. We have to exploit our indigenous knowledge a lot. We should never ignore the indigenous knowledge because indigenous knowledge, as I did my research, I found most of the indigenous people, they are preparing the food. There's a science behind it. I'll give you an example. Like when they're preparing vegetables, they steam it. They don't boil it. And I was being told that when you steam the vegetables and you put the banana leaf on top, you don't lose a lot of the nutrients. So each of these indigenous knowledge should be packaged and shared within the country and outside. And with knowledge, advocacy, and policy, we can be able to make our foods international foods, which can be acceptable globally.
Bernard, I would like to get your thoughts on pushing the agenda of having our indigenous foods internationally accepted and in the tourism circuit. Bernard, you have not talked. Oh, looks like I lost my panelist. Bernard, there he is. Can you hear me? Bernard, unmute yourself. The floor is yours. Okay, unmute. There you go.
You can hear me?
Yes, welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. Now,
Yes.
apologies for joining you at the tail end of our presentation.
It's allowed.
Yeah, now for the indigenous foods, we at Kenya Utalii College, we are proud that we are among the first institutions that helped to promote our indigenous cuisines. I mean the ethnic cuisines across our ethnic divides. We have what we call our annual food festival, where we showcase the different dishes from our ethnic communities. And it is very popular. In fact, the aspect of having the indigenous items on our menus was bred at Kenya Utalii College. What I think that has been lacking in our ethnic cuisines is that we have not packaged them very well. We have a very simplistic way of presenting food. But if you do it well, it can match our international cuisines. So our food is just as good as the international cuisine. What we are supposed to do is, one, let us have most of these items on the menus. Our menus are very foreign oriented. They are leaning towards, mostly you'll find Western and the Asian countries. You find that our items that are local are very limited. So if we have most of them, Kenyans will serve those items, and they'll be as good as international items that we have on our menus. Secondly, we need to see this in our training. You know, like Utalii, the initial idea of training was more Western oriented. But you see now, with the time, we have both the local cuisine and the international cuisine, and this has helped to popularize the local cuisine. So if we have them in our curriculum, especially in the hotel schools or schools that are training culinary art, you'll find that most people will then start appreciating our cuisines. Thirdly, I want to concur with the aspect of research. You know, we need to do also a lot of research on our local cuisines. You find that most of the books we are reading are written about the foreign cuisines, which are international. And then you find that we don't have a lot of content that's local. So we need to have a lot of research and a lot of publication that is local, that is oriented towards our indigenous foods. We can also have, we used to have public awareness, whereby Utalii used to carry out, we used to have mobile clinics, whereby you find that we may want, let's say we schedule a week for coast. So we go through the coastal, maybe towns, and just showcase the cuisines that we have locally. We used to have a van that used to do that, although currently we don't do it, but I think we need to revisit that so that we go around the country and have that kind of mobile showcasing of our cuisines. We can have food festivals across our counties. Every county can organize one, whereby we are going to find that maybe if you go to Western, the Western guys are going to showcase the cuisines that are predominant in that region. If we go to Coast, the same thing. If you go to Nyanza, the same thing, because our foods are also a way of expressing our culture. So you find that if we have those kind of festivals, food festivals, they are going to do a great deal for our foods. We need also to have specialty restaurants now that are just geared towards the African dishes. I know a few have come up that are doing a good job, but like a Maika restaurant, we need to see more of Amaikas in Kenya. The way we have the Chinese restaurants, we have Japanese restaurants, we have Italian restaurants. We want to see more of that Maybe we may say that you could go somewhere and find a Luya restaurant that just showcases dishes that cuts across the Luya spectrum, or the Kikuyu restaurant that does that, or the one that does the Mukithi restaurant that does the things for Mount Kenya. So we need to start seeing that and start appreciating that we still have very good product that we can then showcase for people to come and sample. The issue of presentation is key. How do we garnish this food? Some of these foods that we sell internationally are simple items, but the way they are garnished makes them look big. So we need to start looking at it. How do we present our food so that it appears like something that can be appreciated internationally? So I think that's key for me. Maybe that's what I can say in my opening remarks, as maybe I listen to other people and then I'll give my final.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bernard. So we've had conversations around packaging and presentation of our food, around quality, but I'm not hearing. Yes, but I'm not.
Say it. We're not hearing?
Oh, sorry. But I'm hearing a conversation on about collaboration and dialogue between food producers and food providers, because this is where our food comes from exactly. And
now I have a point on that.
Okay.
The point I wanted to say is that, we must do what we call supply chain management, whereby you are going to support the farmers. Our traditional foods are also very expensive. You want to put them on your menu, but you see the ingredients are not there. That's one thing that really frustrates most of our eateries and food providers. So what we need to do is that we must make sure that we support the farmers so that they also produce them. So once we have these ingredients available, then now you can move to that stage of having them available on the menus, because availability is part of the consideration for menu planning. Are the ingredients available? Because you can have a menu that is saying you'll have tisaka from Western, but tisaka is not on the farm. So it remains on paper. So we need to look at how do we then collaborate with the farmers. Can we support them so that they can produce them? And when they produce, can we give them that market so that they don't also produce and we are not buying from them? So it is important that we look at the entire supply chain so that then we support the farmers.
Okay, thank you so much.
That's important. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm just looking at the chats, and I have a point from Professor Philip Nyangweso, whom I'll request to just join the conversation and bring that point out loudly for everyone. Kindly, Professor Philip Nyangweso. Do we have him?
I'm there.
Yeah, kindly, if you can just amplify that text that you just put on chat.
I put it there and even forgot about it. Maybe I need to. I need to. Can you read it?
Yeah, as a touristic attraction. Okay, as a touristic attraction, more natural, less spices, more organic food can be used to target certain sections of the tourist market, i.e. targeting clientele who are health conscious, both locally and internationally.
Yeah. Now it's back. The professors are very forgetful. Now, so my thing is actually in the Western world, who are actually the major providers of international tourists, there is a lot of consciousness about what they eat. And when you go to most of their supermarkets, you would find even products labeled eco-friendly and eco-friendly organic, and you'll find that more elderly people, 50 and above,
Okay, I think we've got Professor there. Professor Maria Bukutsa, I'd just like you to respond to a question from James. How can we marry tech innovation that target indigenous foods? As we wait for Professor to be back.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I answer the question directly, I think in the research we've been doing, we've been looking at some of the indigenous knowledge, and as I said, packaging it and putting the science into it. I mentioned about steaming. It is one of the ways in which most indigenous communities in Kenya, even in Uganda, do the steaming. When you look at, maybe even Bernard can tell you as a specialist in the area of preparation of food, there are various ways you prepare food. There are technologies, whether you can just eat the food raw, you boil, you steam, you maybe bake, and all those are technologies up to the microwave. And every time you increase the technology, the more complicated it is, the less nutritious the food is. This is the science, there is evidence to that. So steaming is one of the ways in which it's a technology of cooking that ensures less loss of nutrients. So you see, this is a technology which has been researched and is in the innovation domain. But you see, even our indigenous knowledge, they had used this technology using even banana leaves, steaming. And in that, the science is still the same. So you see, you can translate what the indigenous people did and now package it as an innovation. So you say now, when you are cooking food, for example, the vegetables, you can boil or you can steam, but steaming and boiling, steaming is better. So this technology is an innovation that has already been researched and packaged. So you can just now link it to the innovation that has been developed with modern science. What I was trying to say is that everything our indigenous people, especially in Africa, were doing, there's a science behind it. And I gave another example of even using munyu, this lye. It has also its advantages, and a lot of work is being done on that. So the point I was trying to say to answer the question of James is that all this indigenous knowledge can always be scientifically packaged. I'll give you another example, like the recipes that Phyllis has come up with. When you look at the recipes, what we did in some of my studies was we took the indigenous recipes. They tell you we do this, then you standardize them. You put the time and whatever. So it's a matter of just repackaging that knowledge. It's science, it's an innovation, but now you repackage it. So it's only just repackaging it in a way that someone can easily read. For example, I'll give my own example. I know how to make ugali. So one time Mzungu asked me, how much water do you put? How much unga do you put? How long do you cook? I didn't know. I just know from experience, you put and start mixing until you reach a particular texture, and then you stop. But then you see that has to be documented. There's a science in it. We know it's indigenous knowledge. I was taught by my mother and my grandmother. So it's just repackaging what is indigenous with the modern. They are closely linked. So those are some of the examples. So the steaming is one of the technologies or innovations that has come up. And if we look at the indigenous knowledge, it was used. Although they didn't call steaming, but as I explained, you can see this actually what is happening. Steaming to preserve the nutrients.
Thank you so much. Phyllis Malete, and just to add on Professor Abukutsa's point on repackaging this knowledge, as an author, what can you advise? How can we proceed with the publication of this knowledge? I know we have recipe books, but we still want to do more. What can you say about that?
Thank you, Esperance. Packaging of the indigenous knowledge, that is something which we need to do as in we should have already done it. It's something that should have been done like from quite some time back, because we are actually losing this knowledge. And like, was it Peter? He talked about technology, and technology is coming to, I don't know if he was talking about indigenous technology, or he's talking about this progressive technology of even GMO, and what are we doing with the social network technology that has now come in, you know. So technology is not just what we are seeing nowadays of computer technology and all that. No, Mary has said something very important. Indigenous knowledge is our technology.
Yes.
Yes. So we have to harness that, our technology, before somebody else comes in and says, okay, we can do it, but we do it in this way. And then they remove so much out of it. So that's what I'm saying. We should have documented our technology way back, but it's never too late. Yeah. Like the initiative we started as IREN, I think that is very commendable. We need to literally do a step-by-step books and videos of how to cultivate these foods in the most natural and traditional way. Okay, how to preserve that food, how to prepare it, you know. So we use what we have, like video, we use our photography, we store that knowledge, you know, so that we have some reference, okay, but either in book form or what I have those other technologies, so that our technology is not lost, because things nowadays move so fast. Before you know it, you're being told, okay, James has put his hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to chip in. What I meant by that question on technology is that you notice now the modern craze of how to get innovation going is what we call hackathons. We are having innovation hubs all over the place, tech hubs all over the place, and everybody is aiming up to maybe what we say digital technology. But listening to Professor Mary and yourself, one of the key points I'm wondering, because part of what IREN does, we also host hackathons. We also have actually our own tech innovation hub. And I'm looking at how we can package the challenge facing indigenous foods into a hackable challenge. Then we get our young people to innovate around it. So for example, if you want to do steamed food, they come up with something that an urban household can steam if they don't have the banana leaf, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I didn't mean technology in terms of biotech. No, it's just technology in terms of, okay, we want to prepare this food in a certain way, and traditionally it used to be done this way. So let's have these young geeks hack it and give us a tech-savvy way of producing the same results. That's what I meant. Then lastly, I was just challenging Phyllis. Can she talk about at least one of her books? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, James. You cleared that. You know, sometimes when we talk about our food, we are afraid that technology sometimes comes and, you know, overtakes, you know what I mean. But thank you so much for clearing that part. Yes, there's something that we said about our food. Sometimes it is too slow. And nowadays, because of our lifestyle and this new technology savvy generation, they want things faster. They still maybe want the same tastes, but a bit faster. So even when we are saying people keep it simple, it's very difficult for maybe like the age group who James is talking about to go and look for banana leaves, you know, to steam food, you know. So we have to make it practical so that we can carry our food to the next generation, but still retain its basic value. So I think that idea of hacking and you know, that can be a beautiful challenge. I would also like to see how that would actually you know, work out. You know, like how do you cook murenda in using maybe I don't know, new kind of cooking, and it still comes out very well. As for my books, we have done 11 titles. We were not strictly doing Kenyan indigenous food, although the first cookbook one had a lot of that. What happened during that time when we were doing those books? there were supermarkets that were coming up that had a lot of new ingredients that Kenyans did not, were not familiar with. So I thought to myself, why don't we create a book that uses our food, the food that we all know, but we incorporate these new ingredients. And that is how our first book came up, Cookbook 1. It is very, very traditional. It has all our traditional foods, ugali, sukuma wiki. If somebody has seen that book, it has chapati, all the normal traditional foods that Kenyans eat, but with a bit more of influence from the ingredients that were there, that were being introduced in supermarkets that time. Book 2 went a bit international, but still in the ingredients that are here. And then book 3 went the healthy way, and also with emphasis with our food. The rest of the books are booklets. There are about 8 of them. And what we have tried to do is to keep the names of those books Kenyan. We call it chapo, sukuma, kabeji, ugali, mayai, samaki. So we have used Kenyan names just for that part, to make sure that it is identifiable and it's relatable to the Kenyan market. Now, that book that needs to be done, it's urgent. A step-by-step book needs to be done that collects all our it will be a very big book. Almost, well, you can see like maybe 70% of Kenyan food. It can be digital. I think digital would even be better because it will be able to contain more content of step-by-step production of our indigenous foods and from where they come from, because you cannot remove that food from its county or its people, because that also ties very, very well with tourism. You say this food comes from these people and these are the people who. So that book, that information needs to be recorded. And I still insist it should be a step-by-step, because you'll see a very good plate of maybe mrenda, and our young people don't know how to make these things. They say, okay, this looks good, but how do I make it? You just do this and this and this. No, we need a step-by-step. And that's why also I emphasize step-by-step cookbooks. The other reason why food also, I can say foreign food is so common, it's because of that. They did that to their food. They created those books. Those step-by-step cookbooks are so widely available. If you want to learn how to make a pizza, there's a book that shows you even how to make the dough, the measurements, from like if you walk into their bookshop, maybe if you travel and you go, there are very many. Okay. So far, I think I'm not the only person who has done a step-by-step cookbook, and I'm emphasizing step-by-step because that is what makes people feel that I can do this. It's not just a storybook about food. It is a manual that anybody can pick up and sit down and say, okay, I can buy this here. This is the quantity needed. Then I'll cut it like this, cook it like this, and this is the outcome. So we need to do that with our food.
Wow, so we are looking at a digital mapping of our indigenous foods all the way from production, where they can be accessed, the how process until it reaches my mouth. Thank you so much, Phyllis. Bernard, I saw your hands was...
Yeah, I just want to echo what my colleague has said. In cookery is a step-by-step process. Because if you have a recipe, that recipe should now be able to show the method. So you find if anyone is writing a recipe book and he doesn't give a step-by-step, then he is out of step. Because all recipes must have the ingredients that are required and then should have the method. until even it shows you how many people you are going to serve. So it should be there showing you up to the garnish until it reaches your mouth. So it should be a step by step. That's why also there is a challenge there. The bit of technology that I wanted to add is that our foods have been prepared in a very traditional way, which is very important for authenticity. But now there are so many aspects of food preparation that the traditional approach does not appreciate. And that's now where for us who are in training, we are supposed now to help our people who know how to do them traditionally appreciate the modern way of doing it, which I think is not a very difficult thing. We can have even tailor-made programs. We have done them before. We get those mamas, we train them, and they start appreciating how do we garnish the food. Instead of making it very simple, it can still be simple. There are simple garnishes, but they still make your food look good. So we want to tell them this food, the spaghetti bolognese, the way it is garnished. The ugali can still be garnished and looks good. Your kederi can still be garnished and look good like a Chinese item. So these are the things that we need to do. Because you see, one thing that we have done, when the tourism and cookery being so much linked to tourism, it was seen from the Mzungu perspective. So anything African was seen to be of lower class, so that you find we are at Utali Hotel and we are importing all the ingredients from outside and we are leaving our farmers here. So we can still make our people appreciate what we have if we prepare it in a modern way, as you've said, and it will do well. And I've seen most of our people really, they appreciate that. We used to have an African buffet at the hotel. And that was the most popular. So I think our people appreciate. We don't give them and we don't prepare them in a sense that they can also appreciate, so that they also start doing it. But we must always balance the modernity and our authenticity, so that we don't also lose our authentic foods. The authenticity of the food must be there, so that we can get the Kenyan feel. But again, fused with the modernity, so that then it is also prepared in a way that even a tourist coming from outside can still look at that kideri and say, I think it is as good as the Spanish rice. Give me that one, and it will work very well.
Wow, I really like your last point, Bernard, on how we should strike to balance modernity and authenticity,
so that it is authentic. Yeah, yes. They don't look at it like it's a foreign item being given a Kenyan name.
And I think this is also another way where we shall also be able to promote this indigenous food, because now the international market will also want to come and experience that authenticity. By the same time, we have to make it be acceptable in their palate, right?
Yeah, it has to be accepted in the palate. But that's something I didn't add. We used to have a lot of chefs clinics. Our leading chefs should also showcase our cuisines. Why should you have a chef's clinic at Serena Hotel, Nairobi, to showcase a Chinese item? Why don't you showcase something Kenyan? It can be done. If we are showcasing for a foreigner, we can also showcase for a Kenyan, and it will do very well, because that's how you've seen nowadays the Chinese food is very popular even among the Kenyans. Yes. Why should it be popular than our own food? So let our own people also have confidence in our food items, and then it will be fine.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm looking at time, and we are supposed to be closing up. So if I can just get the final thoughts from Professor Maria Bukuta, from Phyllis, and I'll come back to you, Bernard, for final thoughts. And then I'll be welcoming Purity to give us an outline of a competition challenge that has been going on behind the scenes at the IREN Growthpad Virtual Food Festival platform, where we had youths participate in a Chakula Chetu recipe challenge, where they went out of their way to prepare unique recipes that are unique to Kenya, and they submitted to us. And we also had youths participate in a food vlogger challenge, and all these were with an aim to promote the foods that we have as Kenyans. So, Professor Mary.
Thank you very much, Chesoli. Thank you, the panelists, all you have discussed. My closing thoughts are this: let food be your medicine. It's a statement said by the father of modern medicine. If ate properly and cook the food in the proper way, there would be no need to be sick and go to hospital. So most of our traditional foods have were originally used in the most simple way. The simpler it is, the more natural it is, the better it is for your health. As much as technology is important, technology comes with its baggage. So we need to take technology with caution. I know Bernard has talked about trying to modify our foods. As much as we modify to please the international market, I still believe that we should have our uniqueness. It's that uniqueness that will make us attract people, because if we make them like the rest of them, then we shall not be unique. So as much as we are trying to make them better, let us have them to be unique African or Kenyan or even Luya and so on. So don't start cooking siswa and in a different way. Murenda, you just boil, once you boil to mishereha, you put salt and eat. You don't fry, and it's just unique. 2, I want to also add what James has said. The hackathon, I think we participated in it. I think I was involved in a competition in Jomo Kenyatta. Researchers were told to give some information, and I was number 3 out of those who were there. So I know what you are talking about, where the I gave information, and we were able to do it. So I see time is going. Mine is to thank you and say we can share more. And Phyllis, after this, I would like to have a copy of your book. So you can get my number from Chesol. Thank you. And I appreciate this session.
Thank you. Don't go. Phyllis.
Okay. Thank you, Esperance, and everyone else for this opportunity. My closing remarks are these. Our cuisine should not be separated with our flora and fauna. Those two should be sold as a package, so that when people come to Kenya, they know that they are not just coming to see our animals, there's so much more. And our food is as important and as valuable for them to experience as everything else that attracts them to Kenya. So we should sell both of them together in the packages. And this is something that maybe tourist companies, those who invite people to our country, should be made aware of. We should leverage on what is already selling, what is selling in our country. You know, what makes people come to Kenya, okay? And if they are spending, for instance, if a tourist is spending maybe $50,000, they can spend another $20,000 on our food and experiencing how to make our food, where we grow our food. And so that is a money also proposition. You know, it's something that is going to bring in more revenue for the country. Chef training, you know, I know Bernard touched on this. Who are we hiring as our chefs? Are we hiring foreigners? Are those the people who are our, you know, the bosses in the culinary sections of hotels? Because if that is the case, then obviously, you know, somebody sells what they know and what they are familiar with. So changing a perspective of somebody maybe who's from maybe an Italian chef, and maybe who's the head chef, it's going to be a bit difficult. But if we believe in our culinary schools and our trained chefs, local trained chefs, then even you'll see our cuisine will progress towards more Kenyan food. And that's just going to be a natural progression. Finally, we have to create value and put our food at par with the rest of the cuisines worldwide. You know, let's create value by hyping it up, giving it a place, a respectable place, remove it from where it was, from people's psychology, and move it to a different place with our words, with our presentation of our food, and our, our experiences. Let it be that they experience both our food, our people, our animals, our scenery. Thank you.
Bernard, your parting shot?
Yeah, I want to say that this is a very important session. I'm part of a team that's working on domestic tourism, and you cannot sell something to a Kenyan that he doesn't like. And I've seen the rising popularity in our domestic, in our local cuisines. What I can say is that food, one, is very critical for us. Is our identity, is our brand, our local dishes. Let us have more of them on our menus. If we are insisting that our TV content must be 40% or 60% local content, how come in our hotels we cannot have such a policy that let's have most of the 80% or 70% of the menus in those hotels must have a local content? As long as we add value, I think we should go and insist. We should insist that our hotels must sell what is Kenyan. I know when we sell what is foreign, those guys have always asked us, if you are selling me spaghetti, can you do spaghetti better than an Italian chef? Of course not. So why don't we do it the way the Ethiopians do their injera? And if you go to Ethiopia, they are very proud of it. So let this food, local foods, be our local pride, our national pride, and we sell them. And I want to challenge us who are in the academia. Let us have our content also geared towards our local cuisines. Let us elevate it so that it also has a place among the other international cuisines that we teach our trainees or our students. Then we are going to get there. I think this is the right discussion. So we should keep pushing. We should keep the practitioners. We should sensitize them on local cuisines, and then our people are going to appreciate it even as we do more public awareness. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our food, our pride. Okay, Purity, I'm giving you 1 minute to give us an outline on how the food challenge performed, and then I'll be handing over to James to give the closing remarks for the IREN Growthpad Virtual Food Festival 2020. Purity.
Thank you so much, Esperance. Indeed, this has been an amazing session. We've learned a lot, especially on Indigenous food, an area which us as IREN appreciate a lot, and we've done a lot of venturing on the same. So we've had a 2 days challenge via the IREN website portal. Yeah, we named it the IREN Chakula Chetu challenge. Yeah, maybe just to highlight on the genesis of the name Chakula Chetu. Chakula Chetu, as IREN, we've always had an overall objective of promoting gastrotourism. So we've been chefs and outside caterers. And last year we published the book Chakula Chetu Cookbook, which featured the indigenous cuisine from the Western Kenya counties. Yeah, so the chefs were able to present their cuisines. We took them through a series of training. They presented their cuisines, and it's good that the discussion has touched most on garnishing. So we also encourage them to garnish their foods, and that led to the production of the Chakula Chetu cookbook. Yeah, so the challenge had the overall objective of just promoting gastrotourism, also activating the rural markets, because from the discussions we've learned that the source of these raw materials, or rather ingredients for these indigenous food, is the rural areas. So we've always wanted to activate the rural markets. That's why we entered into the venture. We also want to connect, we also have an objective of connecting the chefs and the outside caterers to the tourism circuits. So we want to make tourism is not just coming to a destination and enjoying the animals or what, but from the discussion since yesterday, we've really learned that tourism is all about experiencing all that is at that tourist destination. And one of it is the food, the food which the locals eat. You relate to the environment. So that has been our objective as IREN. Yeah, so the Chakula Chetu, we had two challenges, as Esperance highlighted earlier. The IREN Chakula Chetu recipe challenge and the IREN food vlogging challenge. Yeah, so from the IREN Chakula Chetu recipe challenge, this challenge featured chefs and outside caterers across the 47 counties in Kenya, cutting across obviously the ethnic communities which are in Kenya. So we had 16 chefs and outside caterers submitting their recipes. We got to understand the nutritive value, because we appreciate the fact that if you're telling us about murenda, as a consumer, why should I go for murenda? Yeah, so we embrace the idea of adding the nutritive value. This will make at least a lot of people want to, it's like convincing them why you should take murenda. If someone asks you, why should I take murenda? So you can be able to have points on why they should take. So we featured the nutritional values and also the ingredients. So we had 16 recipes. Yeah, so they were put on the website for the public to interact with, as well as vote for them. So the total casted votes were 253. Yeah, so the first recipe that took the challenge were cutlets. This is a local cuisine. They are made from the locally available ingredients. The second one was chicken. These I know people mostly from Western Kenya relate to. We all relate to that, because we are embracing these foods as our own and not just restricting it to a particular ethnic group or a particular area. So the second recipe was the chicken. The third one, all the way from Samburu, which is quite interesting because this is a homemade yogurt. So we know that the Samburu people have a lot of milk, so they took advantage of that, tried to add some innovations, as we've spoke earlier, that we really need to add some innovations, and came up with the homemade yogurt. On the food blogging, we had participants, and the focus was still on traditional cuisine, because we had entries on how to make arrowroots. As we know, arrowroot is an indigenous food. Yeah, also how to make bananas with groundnut sauce. The ingredients are also locally available. And the person who took it was Elizabeth Awor, who elaborated how to make yummy bananas with groundnut. So that is just outline on the IREN Chakula Chetu recipe challenge, and also the IREN vlogging challenge. and we're just looking forward at having many people embracing our foods, yeah, because that is the overall objective. We promote food tourism in Kenya. Thank you so much. Over to you, Esperance.
Thank you so much, Purity, for that update. And now I hand it over to James to give the final remarks as we wrap up the long-awaited IREN Growthpad Virtual Food Festival 2020. Welcome, James.
Well, thank you so much, Esperance, and thank you everybody who's with us this evening. First of all, I congratulate those the chefs who are voted highest out of 250 votes. I think it's something to really applaud them for coming tops, and also for the food bloggers. We are aware that in Kenya, food blogging is something that is new. We have bloggers, but we don't have vloggers. And so as IREN, we have committed in partnership with some specialist trainers to offer training to top 5 of those who submitted their entries. So we shall be paying the training fees for the top 5, and we look forward to growing the food blogging culture from video blogging. It sounds quite interesting, new English words every day. So we shall be doing that. I'd like, first of all, to thank the IREN Growthpad team that has really worked hard to make this happen. I know there's a big team behind the scenes. We have Evelyn, Liviala, who I'm sure maybe many of you might not be aware of, Zaina Shisia, who has made this very possible, Sally Jepkorir, who is also very busy tweeting on social media, making sure everybody participates. Of course, Purity Cheptirchir, who is actually running the recruitment of the chefs and the training. We thank you so much. And then, of course, Esperance Chesoli, who is our team lead. So thank you so much for making this virtual food festival very successful. I've got only 3 comments, and then we close. And the first one is, one of the key lessons we've drawn from this festival is that if we want to promote food tourism and indigenous foods, we should embrace competition. We should allow as many people to come up with restaurants that serve such foods, compete, so that they are able to innovate. Otherwise, if you just have one restaurant, then chances of being able to innovate, to move to the next level, might not be possible. And this was one of the key lessons we learned from yesterday's conversations, that we should encourage as many restaurants, as many chefs, not to be shy. Even if you see somebody setting up next to your door, they can specialize in Mutura, and you can specialize on Omena, and visitors will always choose. The day they want to choose Omena, they come for Omena, and the day they want Mutura, they come for Mutura. So please let us not block competition. The second part of my message is the good news that comes out of this virtual festival. We have already now, courtesy of this 2-day event, have available a blueprint that anyone can use, either as private sector or public sector, to be able to establish a food tourism business or policy. And this comes out of one of our panelists who has done a lot of research for the last 8 years, and she already has offered this blueprint. The only condition is that you have to credit. Don't take it and plagiarize. So it's available, and she promised to be able to work with all of us. And part of the message from this blueprint is food tourism is driven by food coming from the heart. It means the chef has to love what they do. They have to be passionate about it. So it's not about food coming from the machine. So food tourism comes from a chef who is passionate, whether it's about the fish they produce, the nyama choma, the mrenda. And so the blueprint is available, and we shall be sharing this on the web portal. And we would like to continue making sure that the networks that we've developed during the last 2 days continue. Then the last message is that we as IREN, we welcome all participants for collaboration. We've just learned that we need to promote possibility of digitalization. We need to promote destination tourism in the sense of digitalize the destination, put it on digital platform to attract people. If we are talking about our own food, some people like to see it digitally first before they can taste it. And my question about hackathon and now virtual digitalization, I think we cannot do it on our own. IREN is not our hotel. We don't cook food as we offer platforms. And therefore, we welcome all actors that would wish to take advantage of our platform. We can collaborate, put together areas of synergy. For Phyllis, who is a publisher, see how we can even maybe produce bigger, as you said, the bigger publications. IREN is always ready to do this. Technology-wise, as Bernard was talking about, we create hackathons, see how we can innovate around the production and ensure that the authenticity remains in place. So please make use of Esperance Solis office for this particular type of collaboration going forward. And therefore, we want to use food as part of a key plank that will kickstart the tourism sector that is on its knees at the moment. So with that, I say thank you very much, and let us stay in touch. And for those who have books such as Phyllis Esperance, please make sure we were able to buy some of these books and promote them on our platforms. Asante sana, thank you.